All right, am I live? YouTube looks good. Rumble is a go. And I think Odyssey is ready to go. And it's probably a go. Hey, what's up, capitalists? It's your guide to the 21st century, Nate Hausman here, and we're going to look over some of the news stories from the last week. So, did something happen last week? I guess a mainstay of Western culture left, departed this world, Queen Elizabeth. I don't really have any stories about her. I shared some memes on Instagram, and you can go to my website, neilhausman.net. I've got a whole bunch of merch and resources, and I got a meme page that's basically my Instagram feed, so you can check out what I'm doing there. Please follow me on Instagram. I need to probably put up the link in the description, but or you can go to neilhausman.net and click on the link there. But yeah, King Charles has a lot on his mind. Even he's got the bankers breathing down his neck. He's got the World Economic Forum breathing down his neck. All these elites, they've got elites above them. So it's a big club. We're not in it, but we're busting down the doors. We're there are four things that really rule the world. If you have control over any one of those things, you have a lot of power. There's food, fuel, money, and information. Dr. Steve Turley always talks about food, fuel, and finances, but information might be the biggest one of all. And here in the United States, here with our alternate alt tech like Rumble, Odyssey, Truth Social, we're tearing down the enemy gates on information. So if you find all this content valuable, please give me a like, hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're watching this on. If it's on YouTube, if it's on Rumble, if it's on Odyssey, please do that. And please share it with people you think might get a kick out of it. And if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways. I've got a bunch of affiliate links in the description, so you can click on the link to Uphold. It's a very easy to use crypto exchange. If you're new to crypto, if you're new to investing, check this one out. If you're a little more advanced and you want to find some cool trading resources, click on the link to BitGet. This is a crypto exchange that comes highly recommended by KDub on CryptoZombie, and I've been toying with it. What's really cool about BitGet is they've got copy trading, and I'm building up my investment to actually put in there on copy trading. If your initial investment isn't so great, isn't so big, you might get rejected because the traders you follow will want something more to work with. But you can actually follow certain really skilled traders, and they will basically make moves for you, either buying or selling or long and shorting. And that's a way to make truly passive income. So please do consider that. Click on the link, and you'll be supporting. I'll get a little commission there. Also, you go to my website, natehausman.net. I've got a merch shop, and I've got a resources page with some of the affiliate links mentioned in the description. And finally, I want to mention my other website business. That's Zithos Web Marketing. It's a news aggregator and blog for small businesses, but I also make websites myself. So click on the link to the work with me page and view my services. If you have a small business, if you have a medium-sized business, and you need to really upgrade your profile on search engines, or if you need to step up your game on digital advertising, I partner with a white label service, and I will get you set up for commission. And I can also update or build your website for you. So consider one of my SEO and digital marketing packages as a kind of as your foot in the door, and consider working with me if you want a new website. Financing is available. I've been looking into the whole buy now pay later area of fintech. It's like it sounds like it's been around forever, but it's slightly different than like credit or using a credit card because the interest is supposed to be a lot less. So I do offer financing through Afterpay, which is partnered with Square. So I would send you an invoice through Square, and you'd have the option to buy now and pay for the project in installments. And you might consider that for your own business if you're in any kind of service like home services, contracting, auto repair. Think about that. Please consider that. So let's get started with some of the news. So Sunday was a very sad and significant anniversary. It was 9/11, and it's really hard to think that it's been 21 years since that attack on America, happened. And that, there's talk whether it was really Islamic fascist terrorists who committed the attack, or maybe it was an inside job. Lots of growing sentiments saying that Bush and Cheney and their little clique were really behind it. I don't know enough to make a statement one way or another on that, but I do believe a lot of the evildoers, like the terrorists, the communists, even the Nazis, evil criminal organizations that you think hate each other, they're all tentacles of a big monster that's hiding below the surface. And that would be, the invisible enemy that we've been exposing bit by bit since, Biden overturned the 2020 election. So we're going to read an article or an opinion piece from PJ Media. Biden's 9/11 speech was an ominous socialist dog whistle. Old Joe Biden's 9/11 speech at the Pentagon Sunday was a predictable melange of false piety, feigned emotion, and paper resolve. The world will little note nor long remember what he said there, and deservedly so. And to his or her credit, yes, the ostensible president's speechwriter resisted the temptation to go even lower than usual and liken the supporters of Donald Trump to the 9/11 hijackers. This was not, however, due to some sudden restoration of patriotism and fair play in the Biden White House. The decision was apparently made to cloak the attack on majority of voters in more subtle tones than those Joe employed during his disgraceful black and red speech on September 1st. But the attack was unmistakably reiterated. It's not enough, Joe self-righteously admonished his hapless audience, to gather and remember each September 11th those we lost more than 2 decades ago. Because on this day, it is not about the past, it's about the future. Yeah? How's that, Joe? By protecting the nation against future jihad terror attacks? By vetting the huge numbers of unvetted Afghan evacuees you brought into the country? By bringing some sanity to the southern border, at which people on the terror watch list are frequently apprehended with an unknowable number who have gotten through? Come on, man. Biden did not, of course, mean any of that. We have an obligation, he continued, a duty, a responsibility to defend, preserve, and protect our democracy, the very democracy that guarantees the rights and freedom that those terrorists on 9/11 sought to bury in the burning fire and smoke and ash. Ah, yes, 9/11 is not about the past, it's about the future, in which we have to protect our democracy. And pay attention to whenever these leftists and deep state stooges talk about our democracy, because I guarantee you that's a euphemism for something else. Going on. Protected from whom, Joe? The answer to that is blazingly obvious. In his September 1st speech declaring war against the majority of voters, he complained that MAGA Republicans look at the mob that stormed the United States Capitol on January 6th, brutally attacking law enforcement, not as insurrectionists who placed a dagger to the throat of our democracy, but they look at them as patriots. And I can tell you straight up, that is a lie. You will never believe that the January 6th rioters were, were Trump supporters. There were Trump supporters who were in the building who had been kind of like funneled into the building by the police who unlocked the doors. But the ones that did actual damage, the ones who were carrying the Confederate flag, the ones who were rioting in the actual Chamber of Congress, those were posers. I mean, the Confederate flag they were carrying was a dead giveaway. Those were that was like a false. Those were I don't know if they were Antifa. I don't know if they were BLM. I don't know if they were FBI flags. But those were not Trump supporters. Those were posers. Not as insurrectionists who place a dagger to the throat of our democracy, but they look at them as patriots. He noted approvingly that Federal Circuit Court Judge Michael Luttig has called Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans, quote, a clear and present danger to our democracy. Well, they must not mean our constitutional system of government. They must mean something different, like maybe the deep state or the cabal when they say democracy. The implication is clear. On September 11th, 2001, Biden said enemies of our democracy try to bury our rights and freedoms in the burning fire and smoke and ash. Now we must fight against the insurrectionists who place a dagger to the throat of our democracy and their friends and allies who look at them as patriots. Like Kamala Harris, old Joe is likening the 9/11 jihad terrorists who murdered almost 3,000 people to his legitimate political opposition in the United States today. Joe's speechwriter just did it a bit more subtly. Continuing his dog whistles to the authoritarian socialist left, Biden called on them to work to defeat these enemies of the state. And that takes commitment on the part of all of us. Dedication, hard work, every day, for always remember, the American democracy depends on the habits of the heart of we the people. That's how our Constitution, we the people, the habits of the heart of the people. The transcript wonks at whitehouse.gov cleaned up Joe's speech at several points, but apparently by this time the exhausted editor had given up and left. That's our Constitution, we the people, in all its incoherent glory. This reminds me of Obama's speeches back in 2008. I don't know. You were I listened to his speeches and I was not impressed. I mean, it was a whole lot of platitudes. Obama spoke with a soothing baritone, and he had a rhythm to him that hypnotized people. So unless you were practiced in the way of critical thinking, unless you had already had some experience in debunking propaganda, you were entranced by Obama. He never said anything substantial. He just spoke in word salad that sounded nice. And Joe Biden is trying the same thing, but he sucks at it. Joe called for dedication and commitment. The supporters of Trump have to be faced down on a daily basis. Quote, it's not enough to stand up for democracy once a year or every now and then. It's something we have to do every day, every single day. How, Joe? How will his friends and allies in Antifa and Black Lives Matter hear these words? Will we see an uptick in the political violence he professes to abhor, but to which he will turn a blind eye as always because it comes from the left, not from patriots? Bingo. Bullseye. The our democracy phrase is so frequently used by leftists now that it's easy to just let it go by unremarked. No one should do so. By our democracy, Biden and his henchmen do not mean our actual republic, but the empire of their political, social, economic, and cultural control. That's what he called on his supporters to fight for on September 11, 2022. Buckle up. Yep. And be on the lookout for rioters in the lead up. Be on the lookout for riots in the lead up to the midterm elections. And also be on the lookout for anyone saying they're a patriot, but advocating violence. Real patriots, real followers of the rightful president, we follow the rule of law. We go through the courts. And if the courts, screw us over, then we investigate the courts. We have to do things. We have to do this by the book in order to bring justice and freedom back to, back to the country. We have to do it by the book. Now, it is okay to stand up for yourself. Self-defense is a human right, but as they say in karate, there's no first punch in the martial arts. You always have to defend yourself. Always act, never attack first. Moving on. You might have heard about this. Up to 50 Trump supporters have homes raided by the DOJ FBI across the U.S. This is from September 9th, and I'm going to read parts of this. On Friday afternoon, Steve Bannon told Charlie Kirk that 35 Trump allies had their homes raided by the FBI on Thursday. Bannon said, the jackbooted Gestapo has to show up at their door and make a big display of this. Steve Bannon joined Charlie Kirk on Real America's Voice on Thursday to break the news. Steve Bannon says, you saw from the demonic speech that Biden gave in Philadelphia that this is a dying regime. That was a primal scream. And here, what they're trying to do, no matter who it is, whether Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, there were 35 FBI raids last night. Right. And there's another grand jury coming together on January 6th. The Washington Post reported it. 35 senior members of MAGA, of Republicans, supporters of Donald Trump, that the FBI rolled in on when they didn't need to do it, right? All these people have lawyers. The jackbooted Gestapo has showed up to the door to make a big display of this. So, the author at Gateway Pundit says, this has never happened in American history. The evil regime has gone rogue. On Friday night, attorney Harmeet Dillon went on Tucker Carlson to discuss the mass FBI raids on Trump supporters. Harmeet told Tucker that up to 50 Trump supporters may be involved in these raids. At least one liberal reporter was tipped off to the FBI raids before they took place. So Dillon says, the subpoenas are intentionally broad. They're from the Capitol Siege section of the United States Department of Justice, D.C. office. And they ask for broad categories of documents. They ask for all communications dated from a month before the election until 2 months after the election. And they ask for all communications regarding dozens of people. And the categories are alternate electors, fundraising around irregularities around the election, and also a rally that happened before the January 6th situation at the Capitol. The Save America rally that happened. Basically, all this activity, if not all of it, is protected by the First Amendment. And the United States Department of Justice is telling reporters about the search warrants and subpoenas before they're executed. This is outrageous abuse by the FBI. So this is almost like, getting all your information for tax season. Don't you dare miss a little, maybe payment here and there. Or don't you dare leave out, a little note from someone or an IOU from someone or an email from someone. This subpoena or whatever it is are deliberately broad, and it's deliberately broad so that these stooges at the DOJ can get you on whatever they want. They can say, "Oh, you didn't give us enough," or "You didn't give us the right thing." And this is not, based on the notion of guilty and innocent until proven guilty. So this is terrible, but it's also a sign they're desperate. I always say on this channel, the elites, the criminals who took over our legitimate government, they're actually desperate. They're only acting this horribly because they're on the losing side. Things are rolling and they cannot stop it. So things look bad, but just stay determined. Things are going to get better. And that's the end of that article. Let's see if I have any chats. Not yet, but that's fine. And until I actually build up my audience, I will leave these, videos, these live streams up after I'm done streaming them, so you can watch them whenever you want. So feel free. Here's another giant act of desperation and a big wake-up call. Credit card giants conspire with Democrats to monitor consumer gun purchases. And of course, it's outrageous, but this is, I'm also really excited this is happening because the central bank, the banking system that has, America's government on a leash, they're revealing themselves, because think how much stress you're under because of money. We're in debt. You're always struggling to pay the bills. If someone could cut off your job, they could fire you. They have the power to really control your life. That's why you hate your job so much. That's why you hate your boss so much. That's why your boss gets to be such a prick and treat you like shit. It's because they have the power of your finances over you. Now, consider that maybe law enforcement, maybe well-meaning police officers, maybe well-meaning FBI agents, maybe well-meaning marshals. They want to protect the people. They want to, act fairly. They want to do the right thing, but they got their paycheck hanging over their heads like a sword of Damocles. They've got, they're really on their employer's leash. So if they do anything that the higher ups don't like, they can lose their jobs. They can lose their income. And then what would be the point of being in law enforcement? That's why it's so hard to get a fair shake with law enforcement. Maybe other than the sheriffs. Sheriffs seem to be, distinct. So I've only heard anecdotes on how decent the sheriffs are and their deputies, but I continuously hear good things. So please give them some consideration. But here's a big development showing the government and the financial system how scared they are of people with the means to defend themselves. Credit card giants conspire with Democrats to monitor consumer gun purchases. It should be Democrats bend over to the financial system. After facing mounting pressure from Democrats and anti-gun activists, credit card giants Visa, MasterCard, and American Express all announced plans this week to single out their customers' purchases at firearm stores. Using a new 4-digit merchant category code, credit card companies will now categorize any purchases at gun ammunition stores, regardless if those purchases are of firearms or not, as separate from other shopping. If the credit card companies deem any of those transactions suspect, they'll report them to local law enforcement agencies. Visa, MasterCard, and Amex, American Express, all adopted the new standards on Saturday, shortly after the International Organization for Standardization, or ISO for short, which is known for setting standards for Western business transactions, approved the change regarding gun store purchases on Friday. The ISO's decision came at the behest of anti-gun activists and Democrat lawmakers, including Senator Elizabeth Warren, who just 1 week prior demanded financial CEOs be their eyes and ears when it comes to certain types of suspicious activities, including straw purchases and unlawful bulk purchases that could be used in the commission of domestic terrorist acts or gun trafficking schemes. Elizabeth Warren, who supposedly is such a big enemy of big tech corruption, big tech monopolies, she's putting the screws to CEOs. So, and we've already established with Mark Zuckerberg's appearance on Joe Rogan that big tech is in the pocket of the government. So there. Someone says, mass shooters have repeatedly financed deadly massacres using credit cards, and bank CEOs need to step up to save lives. Warren wrote. Financial institutions and payment networks, such as Visa, MasterCard, and American Express, can and should do everything they can to help law enforcement prevent some mass shootings by identifying suspicious gun purchases through the implementation of this new code. And I know we haven't really turned the corner yet, and we don't have definitive proof to assert this one way or another, but wouldn't it be a scream? Wouldn't it be an outrage if we found out that the deep state is actually behind mass shootings? Consider how many mass shootings happened when Obama was in the White House, how it considerably toned down during Trump's first term, and how we're seeing it again a lot when Biden started squatting in the White House. And consider how much gun control is such a huge issue for the left and for the deep state, why they're so worked up about it. Wouldn't it be to their benefit to have these stories? Wouldn't it be? Wouldn't it be? I know that they passed anti-lynching legislation after the Justice Smollett hoax. So I'm not saying it. I'm not asserting it. I'm not saying it's definitely happening. But wouldn't it be interesting? Wouldn't it be a total? Wouldn't it make sense if? I'll just leave it at that. Even before Democrats decided to pressure credit card companies into doing their bidding on guns, Amalgamated Bank President and CEO Priscilla Sims Brown demanded financial institutions surveil the firearm industry using merchant category codes. Her initial plea to the ISO in June of 2021 was rejected, based on recommendations from Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. But since Amalgamated Bank, the largest union-owned bank in the U.S., works closely with the ISO, it was no surprise that, shortly after Brown's ongoing push to make credit companies the big brother of gun sales, was once again amplified by corporate media in June of 2022. The ISO decided to adopt the new recommendations less than 3 months later. As Federalist senior legal correspondent Margot Cleveland noted in her previous coverage of MasterCard and Visa, academic research suggests that disrupting the sale of illegal goods through the payment networks of MasterCard, Visa, and their partner banks appears more effective than legal action. That's because both Visa and MasterCard can punish banks out of doing business with entities that the credit card companies classify as illegal or problematic. Well, it doesn't even have to be illegal or problematic. Visa and MasterCard can block whatever they want. And just think what a central bank digital currency can do, if they ever implement that. That's likely why even Democrats outside of Congress, including New York City Attorney General Letitia James, celebrated involving credit card companies in the left's push to crack down on gun buyers and sellers as a big victory. And here's a tweet by someone named Logan Hall, and he says, "Open collusion between Democrats and credit card companies restricting gun rights. No reason to pass laws if financial institutions carry out your agenda for you." Exactly. And how much you want to bet that passing laws has only been a formality for the last 50 or so years? And they screenshot a report article by Insider. Gun rights groups and activists, including the National Rifle Association, however, condemned the credit card giants for caving to Democrats and banks' attempts to regulate law-abiding sellers and buyers using corporate America. The ISO's decision to create a firearms-specific code is nothing more than a capitulation to anti-gun politicians and activists bent on eroding the rights of law-abiding Americans one transaction at a time. An NRA spokesman said in a statement this weekend, "This is not about tracking or prevention or any virtuous motivation. It's about creating a national registry of gun owners," which is what Obama was, harping on throughout his 8 years. And I made a snarky little comment on Regional Neagle's stream Monday. "Hey, Barry, did you get that gun registration bill through?" And Obama says, "No." And then the bankers say, "Fine, we'll do it." And we're going to see, just how much power the banking system has over not just our government, but governments all around the world. So this is both horrible, but this is also another red pill, and one that we should, really bang our drums on. And also, if you sell guns, if you sell anything really, start taking Bitcoin instead of American Express and Visa and MasterCard. I as a web designer, I can get you set up with a website that'll take Bitcoin on your online store. So talk to me or talk to any web designer and bring that up. If you build a website with WordPress, there are WordPress plugins, add-ons that work with WordPress that'll let you accept Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency. Bitcoin can be tracked as well, but it's not controlled by a single organization. like these credit card companies are, or by the central bank. So please consider that. So moving on with the economic news. Inflation rises after Joe Biden signs Inflation Reduction Act and prepares White House celebration. This is from yesterday on Breitbart. The White House is planning a celebration of President Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act on Tuesday, even as consumer prices rose again in August, according to the latest numbers from the federal government. The Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index, released Tuesday morning, shows that inflation in August rose 1/10 of a percentage point from July and up 8.3% from the previous year. Grocery prices continue rising fast, as prices rose 0.7% from July and 13.5% from the previous year. Restaurant prices are up 0.9% from July. The Inflation Reduction Act spends billions of dollars subsidizing green energy projects, subsidies for electric cars, and propping up government subsidized healthcare. But the cost of health insurance and energy keeps rising. So many of these so-called economic bills are stuffed with pork, and they're really just, money laundering schemes that the politicians, they use them to funnel money to their corporate and NGO buddies using taxpayer money or money borrowed from the Federal Reserve. So, health insurance rose 2.4% over the past month and up 24.3% from the previous year. Electricity prices rose 1.5% from the previous month, and natural gas rose 3.5%. Biden told supporters on Monday the United States was making progress on inflation, and nobody cares what he says because no one really. And I can't say that, and I can't finish that thought on YouTube, but everyone knows what I mean. The American people should have confidence that we're on the right track, that we're seeing real progress, he said at an event in Boston on Monday. The resident is currently planning a dramatic celebration of the Inflation Reduction Act on Tuesday afternoon at the White House, with a host of Democrat members of Congress and guests. And I think no one actually believes him. If you're going along with this, then you're probably part of the criminal syndicate. Here's something else that'll burn you up. This is from CNSnews.com. Americans spent more on taxes in 2021 than food, clothing, and healthcare combined. According to newly released data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Americans in 2021 once again spent more on average on taxes than they did on food, clothing, and healthcare combined. During 2021, according to table R1 in the BLS's Consumer Expenditure Survey, American consumer units spent an average of $15,495.28 on food, clothing, and healthcare combined, while paying an average of $16,729.73 in total taxes to federal, state, and local governments. And your mileage may vary because of what state you're in, because certain states, have higher taxes than others. So basically, New York and California are skewing the averages here. On average, in 2021, consumer units spent $8,289.28 on food, $1,754.39 on clothing, apparel and apparel-related services, and $5,451.61 on healthcare. That equaled a combined $15,495 that I mentioned earlier. At the same time, American consumer units were paying an average of $16,729 in net total taxes. These included $8,561 in federal income taxes, $5,565 in Social Security taxes. That's money taken from your paycheck. $2,564 in state and local income taxes, $2,475 in property taxes, $105 $2.21 in other taxes, minus an average of $2,541 in stimulus payments received back from the government. So the tax code could be so simple. There could be so much, bloat taken out of it, but that bloat is intentional. Just like, I mentioned with the vague, language of those subpoenas against Trump supporters. The tax code is intentionally made complex and crazy and bloated so that the point isn't really to raise income for raise revenue for the government. It's to punish anyone they don't like. Do I highlight anything else in this article? No. The purpose of all those IRS agents in the Inflation Reduction Act is not to make money for the government. It's to go after the government's political enemies. I mean, Ben Carson laid that out in his epic speech with Obama. Watching, that's when Ben Carson really made it on the national scene, and he's exactly right. So, and we should be mad, but we should also be, glad that this information is coming out. All the better to actually, make a difference at the ballot box. So, just checking on my chats here. Just checking Odyssey. Okay. Moving on. One more piece of government economic news, and then we'll move on to the Bitcoin portion of the stream. Democrats, for all their promises, didn't dare repeal the Trump's tax cuts after all. This is from 10 days ago, September 4th, but it's a great point by the New York Post. President Joe Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act into law last month, adding to a long history of legislation that will achieve the opposite of what its name claims. I mean, it's not even about, what it's talked about. It's like, it's a vehicle for money laundering. Considering the quality of K-12 education after the No Child Left Behind Act, or the affordability of healthcare after the Affordable Care Act, already the Congressional Budget Office projects that the law will have zero impact on inflation. This will not surprise Americans, who by a 3-to-1 margin expect the law to increase inflation, not reduce it. Yet one surprise about the new tax law is not yet making headlines. In passing their own version of tax reform, the Democrats left the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act completely intact, despite 5 years of promises to repeal it. No less than President Biden himself made a campaign promise that on day one, I will move to eliminate Trump's tax cuts. Republicans passed the TCJA through budget reconciliation in 2017. Democrats decried the law as tax cuts for the rich, funded by a middle-class tax hike. Yet the Joint Committee on Taxation found that the TCJA made the tax code more progressive, and the Congressional Budget Office found that the law cut tax rates across the board, not just for the wealthy. Even the Washington Post later reported that most households got a tax cut. The law's business tax reforms were far more important for American global competitiveness. The corporate rate was slashed from 35% to 21%, and businesses were allowed full and immediate expensing for investments in short-lived, 20 years or less, capital assets. The tax code's business net interest deduction was limited. Combined with full expensing, these changes removed the code's bias for debt financing over equity financing. The TCJA also modernized the U.S. corporate tax system by moving to territorial taxation, coupled with provisions to prevent profit offshoring. Finally, smaller pass-through businesses received a 20% deduction against taxable income. In all of this, congressional Democrats found nothing to change in their quest to raise taxes. Perhaps they've conceded the reality that the TCJA, though imperfect, significantly improved the American tax system. And something that would totally improve the American tax system would be abolishing the income tax, repealing the 16th Amendment, and abolishing the IRS. Don't tax income, only tax maybe consumption. Just have sales tax and be very, judicious about what products or services you impose taxes on. The TCJA was a fiscal white whale the Democrat leaders promised to harpoon, yet they left it unscathed. One explanation for why comes from Manhattan Institute senior fellow Brian Riedel, who argues that despite its party line vote, the TCJA was more bipartisan than Democrats want to admit. That might be among voters rather than politicians. As a Senate staffer, Riedel listened to Democrats concede that lower corporate tax rates, full expensing, and territorial business tax system were more common sense policies, but they worried about angering progressive activists. Perhaps Democrats became trapped by their own successful messaging campaign against the TCJA, which prevented them from publicly admitting its merits. As two New York Times columnists wrote in a 2019 synopsis, to a large degree, the gap between perception and reality on the tax cuts appears to flow from a sustained and misleading effort by liberal opponents of law to brand it as a middle-class tax increase. That was such a blatant lie. I mean, the leftists said it with such certainty that normal people, reasonable people thought, huh? How do we even argue with that? How do we even reason with you? I mean, that just goes to show how sick the leftists are. I'm not talking about liberals. I'm talking about leftists. Leftists are phony liberals who pretend to have values in order to hide their ulterior motives. That's Democrats, that's Antifa, that's the communists, that's the socialists, that's the deep state stooges. So, and that's really a case on how to interact with. That's really a case on how to interact with people you can't really reason with. If someone, preemptively says something blatantly wrong and says it with such conviction, you really don't need to engage with them. You just need to kick the dust off your shoes, walk away, and leave them to God. Hope that God can get through to them through His work with the Holy Spirit. But moving on here, another act of desperation. Now, I told you, please use Bitcoin for your commerce, but according to BitcoinMagazine.com, White House suggests banning proof-of-work mining used by Bitcoin. The report discusses Bitcoin's energy use and its negative effects on the environment, while suggesting possible executive action in the future. So the White House is suggesting, legislation against, proof-of-work cryptocurrency, which is Bitcoin, and which just goes to show how scared they are of it. Per President Biden's executive order, the White House Office of Science and Technology submitted its report on Bitcoin mining's climate impacts. The report alludes to possible executive orders and legislation from Congress to limit or eliminate proof-of-work mining. Some of the cited resources have been criticized for biases to certain industries and spreading misinformation. So with the article here, I've highlighted what I wanted to read, but I think I might just read the whole article. It's not that long. The White House Office of Science and Technology released a report claiming Bitcoin mining negatively impacts the environment and hints towards banning proof of work. Electricity usage from digital assets is contributing to greenhouse gas emissions, additional pollution, noise, and other local impacts depending on markets, policies, and local electricity sources, reads the report. The first section of the report serves as an introduction while also hinting towards banning proof-of-work mining, which is used to mine Bitcoin, if regulatory action fails to influence U.S. climate goals. And right there, this is BS. Climate change was debunked 12, 13 years ago. I've got a whole video on it. I don't know if you can watch it on YouTube, but please visit my channel on Rumble or Odyssey, where I pretty much reassure you that the climate agenda is a scam and you don't have to take it seriously. The only reason you might want to take it seriously is because narcissists and criminals have infiltrated the legitimate government and are trying to force you to follow along. But the more you know, the more you can work against it. Knowing is half the battle, as G.I. Joe says. Should these measures prove ineffective at reducing impacts, the administration should explore executive actions, and Congress might consider legislation to limit or eliminate the use of high energy intensity consensus mechanisms for crypto asset mining, per the report. Next, the document explores how mining can affect electrical grids. The Office of Scientific Technology asserts that Bitcoin mining facilities create added stress on the power grid that leads to blackouts, fire hazards, and equipment deterioration. The report also claims that Bitcoin miners will raise average electricity costs for local consumers, but no word on what electrical vehicles do to the electric grid, or what government regulation does to the electrical grid. Just compare California to Florida, and see how well they're managing their electricity during a heat wave. Depending on the energy intensity of the technology used, crypto assets could hinder broader efforts to achieve net zero carbon pollution consistent with U.S. climate commitments and goals, reads the report. Finally, the last section concludes that there are ways in which Bitcoin mining can actually benefit U.S. climate goals, although this is a much smaller section. Proof of work mining that installs equipment that use vented methane to generate electricity for operations is more likely to help rather than hinder U.S. climate objectives, says per the report. However, it's worth mentioning, of the cited resources used in this report, many are debated, and some of the researchers have received criticism for extreme bias or misinformation. No shit. So, I didn't link to this article in the description, but I might edit and add it after I'm done streaming here. So you can look at this article and you can look at the resources they link to, because this is an act of desperation. They're showing just how scared they are of Bitcoin, just how much Bitcoin threatens the banking cabal. There's a lot of debate between whether Bitcoin is better than gold or whether gold and silver are better than Bitcoin. I think they're both fine. Gold can be used to back a currency, and Bitcoin can be used for long distance, transactions. And the only reason these assets fluctuate in price so much isn't because they themselves are unstable. It's because the fiat currency is unstable. I mean, there's so much printing or hawkishness and interest rates being hiked on the fiat money that you really should consider whether it's legit or not, legitimate at all. So there's that. Do I really want to read this article? I might make this a Instagram meme to discuss it. But Fidelity is considering offering crypto trading to brokerage customers. And Fidelity, is a big, financial institution. They run a lot of 401ks and retirement plans. So that's potential, method of adoption for the wider world of Bitcoin or crypto. I don't think I'll read the article. I just wanted to mention that. I might make a meme of this later on that you can look at on Instagram. But continuing with the cryptocurrency and blockchain news and the whole metaverse and Web3, we've got some good news to share. This stooge, this lizard in a man suit, Mark Zuckerberg, is floundering, and his empire is dissolving in front of him. And anything that's bad for this creep is good for humanity. Opinion from Coindesk.com: the continued unraveling of Mark Zuckerberg's malicious metaverse. Written by David Z. Morris. So that's what I'm quoting here. What is best in life? Being right about another man's failures, watching his allies abandon him, and hearing the lamentations of his shareholders. Call me the world's happiest cynic, then, because when I predicted the utter and catastrophic failure of Facebook's rebranding as Meta starting less than a year ago, I genuinely didn't think it would all unravel as quickly and ignominiously as it has. Horizon Worlds, Meta's intended metaverse, went live in December, and my God, it has been downhill from there. The good news is that we're getting a lot of free entertainment out of Mark Zuckerberg's attempts to be the face of this dead-end transition. In the past few weeks, have seen some real highlights, culminating in a transcendently embarrassing appearance on Joe Rogan's podcast last week. Zuck and his marketing team are still seemingly in the thrall of the Meta CEO's former status as a Silicon Valley wonder kid, evidently blinding them to a nearly supernatural lack of personal appeal. And how much you want to bet that he's just a figurehead? How much you want to bet that someone else actually came up with Facebook and is using, Zuck as a proxy to really make it seem like, oh wow, this is a whiz bang product. I mean, it probably happened with Elizabeth Holmes and her Theranos project, and also with Jack Ma with Alibaba. My friend Charles, he calls Jack Ma the world's most inadequate man. Like, no way Jack Ma is really in charge of Alibaba. If you see his interviews, if you see his public appearances, the guy is a flake. He's a lightweight. The results are frequently, in a word, delicious for a hater like me, says the author. And while the sizzle comes in the form of incredible public relations embarrassments, after that comes the steak. Facebook's pivot to Meta is crashing and burning as a material business proposition with astonishing rapidity. The past few weeks have been particularly brutal for Zuckerberg's grand ambition to create a Second Life mod in which everyone is a double amputee. I guess all the avatars don't have legs. The current, far from first wave of embarrassing flubs kicked off on August 17th when Zuckerberg posted a selfie from Meta Horizon World's rollout in France. As pretty much everyone was happy to point out, it looked embarrassingly bad. Not just like a game built to roughly 2007 levels of detail and immersion, but like one without the slightest spark of design creativity. This lack of creative juice cannot be overemphasized. There are genuine technological limits to the graphical fidelity and avatar tracking that's possible in an immersive virtual reality environment. But Horizon Worlds could have done a lot better within those limits. Compare its aggressively bland corporate vibe to the spectacularly colorful Minecraft-inspired voxels of The Sandbox, which has an alpha season open right now, for your information. That comes down substantially to business models. Blockchain-backed metaverse projects like Sandbox and Decentraland are gratifyingly weird and quirky, in part because they're fairly chaotic organizations answering to a lot of stakeholders. But Zuckerberg has effectively total control of Meta, and the emptiness inside of him is written across every pixel of his creation. Oh my God, this is such a masterful takedown. Zuckerberg followed up with an even less realistic simulation when he last week appeared on an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience as an uncanny mimic of Rogan's martial arts loving red meat fanbase. Bloomberg's Max Chafkin has a definitive read on this one. But in a nutshell, Zuckerberg made the case that virtual reality will make you more of an ass-kicking alpha compared to the beta passivity of watching television. This is hilarious for at least 3 reasons. First, sitting inside staring at screens will never make you more vigorous. For God's sake, touch grass. Second, Zuckerberg himself has already spread more hormone-sapping passivity in the world than maybe any other single person via Facebook and Instagram. And third, on a personal level, it's hard to think of a less convincing pitchman than the eternally effectless to miserable Zuck for any supposed shortcut to leading a more fulfilling human life. But this is all just theater and window dressing, however godsmackingly inane. The real question is how Meta's Reality Labs is doing as a business. And the answer is, surprisingly, maybe better than you think. But still pretty rotten once you scratch the surface. You see, it turns out that Meta actually sold a whole lot of its Oculus Quest 2 headsets over the 2021 holiday season, with app installs suggesting about 2 million new units activated over a 2-week period. For comparison, a little over 20 million total PlayStation 5 consoles and 15 million Xbox Series X units have sold in the past 2 years. That comparison itself is a problem for Zuckerberg's real goals. If the Quest or successor units are successful as video game consoles, there's probably still a failure. The units are almost certainly being sold at a big loss. This more or less affirms the longer-term business model is the same kind of data harvesting and ad monetization that Facebook and Instagram run on. Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, PlayStations and Xboxes, they very rarely sold at profit. They were sold at a loss because they were more expensive to produce than to sell. They made their money by selling games. Oculus is probably either trying to make money selling games or harvesting data, which has always been social media's real moneymaker. That means Zuckerberg doesn't actually want you using the headset for playing Superhot VR. He wants you in Horizon Worlds, specifically having the kind of data-rich social interactions they can use to spy on your tastes, habits, and network that nudge you into clicking on advertisements. The problem is that Horizon Worlds is just not unimpressive graphically, but functionally clunky and basically pointless. More crucially, there's seemingly no equivalent to the stream of posts and updates that keep people coming back to the actual successful Facebook and Instagram products. To be crystal clear, Horizon World's morally execrable agenda, which essentially amounts to a commercialized mind control verging on psychological abuse, is the main reason it's so fun to watch Zuckerberg flounder. This is a man who has harmed society, so celebrating his not so slow downfall is a completely guilt-free pleasure. But it's even more delightful that serious business observers seem to believe he's going to completely flub or even this manipulative agenda. Equity markets utterly loathe Facebook's pivot to the metaverse, and every word about it coming from Zuckerberg's mouth. Over the past 6 months, that is, even after its epic 26% one-day crash in February, Meta stock has underperformed both every other major tech stock except Netflix and the overall market. Meta is down 21% for that span, versus a 4% drop for Apple and a 15% drop for Amazon, a 10% drop for the Dow Jones Industrials, and a 14% drop for the NASDAQ Composite Index. There are countless reasons for this, but one in particular deserves highlighting. As Kotaku's reviewer observed, Horizon Worlds is currently packed with hall monitor-like community guides keeping watch on what's going on. Oh my god. From a business perspective, that might be the scariest signal of all, highlighting the risk that Horizon Worlds will be even harder to moderate for offensive or dangerous content and behaviors than Facebook already is. If the community guides are a permanent necessity, as 15,000 content moderators still are at Facebook, the whole thing may yet prove fundamentally economically non-viable. Then there's the ultimate sign of imminent doom, the June departure of former Meta Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg. Sandberg has always been the adult in the room at Facebook and Meta, the person who knew how to turn a mind-destroying Skinner box into a profitable business, which is, yes, an embarrassing reality given that Zuckerberg is now almost 40. Sandberg's departure signals a deep lack of faith by probably the single living human who knows the most about what's actually going on over there. And that's no simulation. This opinion piece that was a trip. And it just goes to show you can't listen to what the corporations say the metaverse is. You gotta listen to you gotta listen to the grassroots. Metaverse is supposed to be, or Web 3, which we're moving into out of Web 2. It's giving the internet back to the people. It's letting people control their own content, make money, earn a living through their own content, and not be controlled by a corporation like Facebook or Amazon or Google, like big tech. It's a decentralization of the power of the internet. So that was a trip. Let me take a drink here, and let me just check if I have any chats. Okay, nothing on Aussie. And YouTube's just refreshing the page. Two concurrent views on YouTube, yay! I know I'm still a scrub here. I know I'm still starting out. That's fine. Gotta start somewhere. I might hop on another stream after I'm done with this. We're about halfway through. Let's laugh at some more corporations trying to think they're into the whole metaverse thing. Ubisoft, the AAA gaming company, is pretending that it was never really that interested in NFTs. Hat tip to a Raging Old Eagle for this article. If you've been following Ubisoft's relationship with the NFT space in the last year, you probably remember that its nonsensical release of Quartz NFTs and Ghost Recon Breakpoint was halted in April after just a few months. At the time, though, Ubisoft said players should stay tuned for more updates with features to the platform and future drops coming with later games! Exclamation point! In the months since then, though, Ubisoft seems to become less enthusiastic about its future NFT plans. In a recent group Q&A following a press event at Ubisoft's Paris HQ, transcribed by GameIndustry.biz, CEO Yves Guillemot tried to clarify that the company is still in research mode, I would say, when it comes to NFTs. And the NFT bubble has burst. Now, the technology does have promise, but the whole, the whole initial phase of it is over. No one wants to blow tens of thousands of dollars worth of crypto on an image that you can screenshot. We're really looking at all the new technologies. We are very much on cloud, the new generation of voxels, whatever that is, and we're looking at all the Web3 capabilities. We tested a few things recently that are giving us more information on how it can be used and what we should do in the universe of video games. So we are testing around. We are testing ground in some games, and we'll see if they really answer the player's needs. Blah blah blah. Word salad. The bit about answering the player's needs is especially interesting in the wake of Ubisoft's use of NFTs in Breakpoint. In the months after Ubisoft gave away thousands of game-usable NFTs, an Ars analysis found only 96 successful secondhand sales for those in-game items on Object and Rarible, the only two marketplaces where such sales are allowed, with prices generally measured in the equivalent of tens of dollars. Oh my gosh. These third-party transfers were sold as one of the primary use cases for NFTs in the first place, so the lack of sales shows just how little player interest there was in Breakpoint's NFT implementation. Now, a lot of gamers, they've been against NFTs, not necessarily because they approve of the technology, but they just don't trust AAA gaming companies to do it right. These are corporations just as big as any Hollywood studio, just as any big tech, titan like Facebook or Amazon. These are corporations that only care about using people as cows, as cattle, as livestock, as pay pigs. They grind up their employees and they milk their players for all they're worth. They find new and devious ways of monetization and sucking up people's money, even in ways that are not that ethical. So it's really a shame that they got behind NFT. They got behind NFTs because it really turned off a lot of people who would otherwise be into it. Now, though, Guillemot talks about NFTs as just another in a long line of wacky tech fads that Ubisoft likes to play around with when they're new. Well, he's right this time. As a company, we went into VR early, into the Wii early. We always try new things, he said. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But it's always to make sure we can bring a new experience to players that will be innovative and interesting. The goal of the company is always to create the best experience. And new technologies are always good for that because there's less competition and people are more interested to try new things on new technology. The worst part of Guillemot's NFT remarks came when he spoke as though Ubisoft hadn't launched its first NFT experiment yet. We should have said we were working on it. And when we have something that gives you real benefit, we'll bring it to you, he said. Exploring doesn't mean launching. While we agree that exploring doesn't mean launching, we'd argue that Ubisoft actually launched NFTs in Breakpoint last December. The fact that Guillemot now says Ubisoft is waiting until it has something that gives you real benefit before any further launching tells you everything you need to know about just how quickly the company's feelings on NFTs have changed. Well, better late than never. cut your losses. And now we're officially into the entertainment and pop culture segment of the stream. So, and while you might not consider this to be like real business oriented or economy oriented, it is all connected because, as Breitbart always said, politics lie downstream from the culture. So, and one big cultural turning point we're seeing is the rejection of woke entertainment. And someone actually defined the problem very well. We're going to look at that in the next little piece here. But from the Daily Wire, Disney's Little Mermaid live action trailer dropped, and fans are getting called racist for hating it. So there's the star of the Little Mermaid live action remake. She's a looker, and she's a very good singer. She's a very sweet young lady, by all accounts, but does she look the part? That's the problem. Disney just released the trailer for its newest live action remake, The Little Mermaid, and reactions have been strong from the get-go. Like with other projects, detractors are being told it's racist to dislike this new version. The studio chose Halle Bailey, not to be confused with Halle Berry, to portray the thin princess. Because the actress is black, many are already saying criticism must be racially motivated. However, early critics have plenty of complaints about the movie that have nothing to do with Ariel's skin color. First and foremost, most of the fact that The Little Mermaid is being remade at all. The original 1989 cartoon version is considered a true triumph of the Disney catalog. Yeah, it was the turning point. Disney had been struggling for decades after Walt Disney's death, and Little Mermaid was the first movie in the Disney Renaissance that really brought Disney back from its, struggles. Fans are confused that a movie mostly set under the sea is now being told in live action form. Plus, there's the question of what value can be added from telling the same story that's already been told. The Little Mermaid is the latest in a long line of remakes from the studio. Most of them haven't been well received by fans. Nope, just nope. Stop ruining old classics with remakes, one viewer exclaimed. Other viewers were confused with how Bailey interpreted the classic song Part of Your World. Okay, we need to talk about her singing. Part of Your World is supposed to be a song of longing and a light, quiet end to her voice. Why is she mixing it up? I haven't seen the trailer, but apparently she's all caterwauling Mariah Carey style. Like why? Someone responded when the trailer came out. There are a lot of negative comments about how dark the movie appears, at least from the trailer. Halle sounds beautiful singing Part of Your World. No complaints about Halle at all. The movie just looks so dark, one person wrote. You may say it's under the sea. Yes, that's true. But it's also about a mermaid. I just like to see a bright, colorful film. It's shot so dark. Some commenters couldn't understand why the redheaded mermaid Princess Ariel switched ethnicities. In response to those questions, one person said, "Everybody's forgetting that the redhead Ariel is not the original Little Mermaid. A lot of things were changed from that film, and nobody argues. She had blonde hair, and her name was Marina." That's in the old Danish, folk tale or book by Hans Christian Andersen. So why should it matter if a race changes? It just sounds like racism to me. End quote. YouTube no longer shows dislikes on videos, but those with a browser extension that tracks downloads, say negative reactions far outnumber likes. As of Monday, the trailer had 9.4 million views and only 359,000 likes, compared to like millions of dislikes. So yeah, you can actually look at the like and dislike counter with a Chrome extension. So go ahead and look that up. Now, no offense to Halle Bailey. I'm sure she's a sweet kid. I think she's in her early 20s, but she's an adult. But she's being used here by Disney. I think they know from the outset that the movie is bad and that it's pointless. So they're using her as a shield to deflect criticism. And this is really what the same thing that happened with Obama. Obama is half black. He's minority. He is a legitimately awful person. He's a crook. But you couldn't criticize him because, you're going to sound racist if you do that. Well, people are getting wise to this, and they're now able to articulate. It doesn't matter what color, it doesn't matter what, ethnicity you are, how you identify, what your gender is. If your product is bad, or if your performance is bad, or if the company you're representing is dog shit, we are allowed to call it out. And poor Halle Bailey, I mean, just looking at her, I think she's probably okay. She's probably an okay person, but she's being used. She's still a young adult, so I'll cut her some slack. But YouTube channels like Nerdrotic, like Geeks and Gamers, like Clownfish TV, like Razor Fist, like Raging Golden Eagle, like Drunk 3PO, like Doomcock, Overlord DVD, they've been sounding the alarm on woke entertainment really since 2016, 2015, when things really got bad. Finally, someone on Twitter has called the monster by its name and really figured out what's going on with really the degradation of quality entertainment in Hollywood and on network television. This is Dr. Thalos Siren, and hat tip to Midnight's Edge for mentioning this Twitter thread. Midnight's Edge has a great summary of rundown of this Twitter thread, and also where they think the problem really, which movie really started this whole woke agenda crap. But let's read this Twitter thread by Thalos Siren, and he or she calls the problem fan baiting. Fan baiting is a form of marketing used by producers, film studios, and actors with the intent of creating exciting artificial controversy, garnering publicity, and explaining away the negative views of a new and often highly anticipated production. Okay, that's part 1 of 10. Fan baiting emerged as a marketing strategy in 2016 to 2017 after fans of beloved franchises such as Ghostbusters and Star Wars objected to what they saw as poor writing choices, sloppy scripts, and cheap alterations to plot lines and characters that's for the sake of shock value. Alongside these critics, there was a small group of bigoted but vociferous commentators who objected to the inclusion of black and female actors in roles traditionally held by white male actors. Some of these individuals began publicly harassing actors. Bigots have always attacked diversity on screen, but in a highly polarized political climate, instances of harassment ungarnered disproportionately massive media coverage, which provided production studios with both free publicity and new defense against genuine critics. Studios seized this opportunity to discredit criticism and poor writing and acting, insinuating that these too were motivated by bigotry. What used to be accepted as standard critiques were increasingly dismissed as part of an ignorant commentary of a toxic fandom, quote unquote. Soon, it became standard practice before release to issue announcements specifying diverse casting choices, coupled with preemptive declarations of solidarity with the cast, whom they now counted on to receive disparaging and harassing comments. See Halle Bailey, see the actress who played Reva in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, see the cast of Amazon's Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. Actors who were women and or BIPOC, people of color, became props and shields for craven corporate laziness and opportunism. Studios saved money both by avoiding expensive veteran writers as well as by offloading publicity to news outlets and social media covering the artificial controversy. Fan baiting works. It brings in a new sympathetic audience whose endorsement is more about taking a public stance against prejudice than any real interest in the art. Fan baiting also permits studios to cultivate public skepticism over the legitimacy of poor reviews. Fan baiting also compels viewers to temper their criticism for fear of being associated with the toxic fandom and losing their professional credibility, resulting in telling discrepancies between critic and audience review scores. The true nature of fan baiting is never so clear when a script is well crafted and audience reviews are accordingly positive, exposing the announcements, declarations of solidarity, and grooming of skepticism for what they really are: cynical corporate marketing tactics. Put another way, media corporations have found a way to monetize the racism that they set their actors up to receive. In, for example, The Rings of Power, Amazon knows exactly what it's doing. One of the first images released was of Disa. On cue, a couple bigots said the predictable, allowing a giddy Amazon to release its pre-prepared scripted statement denouncing the pushback. It's denouncing the pushback. It's the new business model. Fan baiting isn't black people getting cast either. It's corporations banking on black people getting harassed to inflate publicity. Hence, diversity casting is in part motivated by the hope that the corporation can maximize harassment and consequently money. Racism and sexism are the main issues. A secondary issue, one that is being overlooked, is corporate monetization of bigotry. Even while a studio purports to be challenging bigotry, it's also counting on bigots being bigoted and doing its best to direct them to the actors. Solution: media corporations should A. hire experienced writers and give them the time required to write great characterization and plots for these actors, unlike Amazon and Disney, and B. accept critique rather than suggest all critique is motivated by bigotry. This is a very important point here. As evidenced by the success and great reviews of HBO's House of the Dragon, in comparison to Amazon's Rings of Power, both of which feature a diverse cast, the problem is the quality of writing, not the complexions of the actors. For those of you who like this thread on fanbaiting, know that it's an example of structural racism. The individuals involved may not be personally racist, but the profit motive of the corporations to employ them orients them to make decisions that harm racialized peoples. So, there. And the Midnight's Edit video that I watched, that I found this fanbaiting thread from, they also go on to say that patient zero for fanbaiting wasn't actually the Ghostbusters remake in 2016. It was actually the Fantastic Four movie from a few years earlier. One that was intentionally bad, one that Fox only made to hang on to the Fantastic Four rights, keep them away from Marvel and Disney. It was intentionally made bad, it was intentionally miscast, and the fact that, it had one black actor in the cast, Michael B. Jordan, that was their, that was the initial method, that was the initial, push of using identity politics and racial and gender politics as a way to deflect criticism. The movie is outright awful, and all the marketing was awful, but that really is, where it all started. So Disney, we do see a lot of, media companies moving away from woke entertainment, from fan baiting. We see that Paramount's having a big success with Top Gun Maverick. We see that HBO is having success with House of the Dragon. We see that HBO and Warner Brothers and Discovery, they've got a new CEO who's cutting projects left and right because they don't match what the audience wants. The CEO, David Zaslav, he's cutting a lot of projects because they're crap. They're just not good. He canceled the Batgirl movie, and we are seeing, Hollywood slowly, gradually turn the corner and come back to their senses, trying to actually make good content for the audience. Disney is going to be the biggest holdout, one of the last holdouts, because they already make money through their theme parks and through live sports on ESPN. But I want to share an article, or actually an opinion piece, that says things aren't so great in the theme parks. This is from WDinfo.com. This is an article written by Zoe Wood, and she says, "Excuse me, legacy fans, we might just be Disney's only way forward." And I do want to mention this because a lot of Disney's business relies on getting people to the theme parks and buying merch and buying expensive, bookings at the hotels and drawing a whole lot of money there. Just about all their just about all their shows on ABC or in the movies, they're geared towards getting people to the theme parks. And also being quality at the same time. But let's read here. It was an interesting week in Disney news this time around, with an article from the Wall Street Journal causing quite a stir amongst Disney fans, touching on a few sore spots and creating some new ones. The article was based on the pricing of Disney parks and the inevitability of further increases as the cost of business and innovation consistently rises globally. Though, between Josh D'Amaro, chairman of Disney Parks, and the spokesperson quoted in the article, the vibe that Disney was giving off was not one of justification and positivity, leaving a more of a dismissive, backhanded taste in my mouth. While I sat on the 10-hour plane ride from Oahu back to Sydney, I realized I had feelings about that I needed to share. Undoubtedly, prices need to increase over time, and there's no confusion here. There is no end to this trend in sight. We understand this. This isn't what we're complaining about. Yet it's the answer they keep providing as if we asked the question. We ask about the quality, they always attempt to change the narrative to the one they can defend. Why is it so much to ask that the Disney company confront the fundamental questions centered around staying true to its origins, keeping up the tradition of Disney while expanding to meet new needs simultaneously? Yeah, people are saying that the quality of entertainment and the quality of service at the Disney theme parks is declining, that it's not worth the money. And that's a big problem. Of course, they will look to increase revenue. In some ways, this serves us as much as it serves them. For if they were not a profitable company, the doors would close, and Disney would be lost forever. It also goes toward keeping the parks updated with new rides and attractions, as well as environmental and community initiatives. If I am honest, I don't even have an issue with the money grab that a visit to the parks has become. In a way, that is what I know I signed up for. For me, it comes down to avoidable little changes that detract from what we know Disney to be. Now, it's simply not being a collective doormat means we need a new passive, aggressively condescending title like Legacy Fans that take a seat, Josh D'Amaro. We need to have a little chat. We've discussed this issue before on The Diz, the idea of the parks pushing the golden generation out with eye-rollingly necessary technology, but the problem seems to be escalating. Now they want to segregate their market into groups. Those who they believe will visit infrequently and spend the most with the slightest complaint, and those who continue to return consistently but also require a certain standard to be upheld to be appeased. Now look, Josh, some people will never be happy, and a 50-cent increase would make them turn red. I'll give you that, though. The large majority of us whom Disney has so patronizingly referred to as legacy fans, we want to restore what we had. Not the price, or necessarily the perks, but the value, both monetarily and emotionally, that you felt your vacation was an investment into something that lasts a lifetime. I was on board when almost all the significant changes of the last 10 years have made everyone else squeal. I didn't fuss when you took away free parking at resorts, or even when you added Genie Plus. Genie Plus is such a boondoggle, such a hassle. And while I had a quiet chuckle at the misguided idea of the new Magic Band Plus, I didn't give you a hard time about that either. However, this recent statement, basically calling out everyone over the age of 35 who remembers a time when Disney meant attention to detail and inexplicable delight, telling us to get with the program simply because we don't accept the consistent excuses for a decline in common value, is a joke. You jumped the gun here on the whole legacy fan speech, and I have to tell you, mate, you don't want to tick us off just yet. Legacy is a word that, by definition, means something passed on. Legacy is a term that my web hosting company uses to describe an old platform they no longer support. Do you no longer support us, Josh? Would you like us to stop supporting you? Before you answer that with an entitled self-assurance that the money will keep rolling in regardless, think about what qualifies one as a legacy fan. I imagine being of a certain age and having an affinity with how Disney was run in the past is a critical factor in this description. Let's look at the socioeconomics of it for a moment. Younger families tend to have less disposable income. Their wages tend to be lower, having spent less time in the workforce unless they have reached a more prestigious level in their career. The legacy fans often fund those expensive vacations, parents and grandparents splurging to bring the whole family together, attempting to recreate what we knew as kids. We are the ones who understand the true value of Disney beyond what we see, dollar for dollar. We are the ones who know the impact this type of vacation and experience can have on families. We redefined the term Disney value to mean more than just what you can provide, but what we can create for ourselves in parks. Do you want us to pass on that torch to a generation that hasn't yet had the chance to give a duck about that emotional investment? Say hi to Walt. A focus on the younger market comes with consequences for Disney. I keep hearing headlines daily about how the entering generation of young adults will never be able to afford their own home or a mortgage. They can't afford to rent. They can't with skyrocketing prices and demand. Well, Disney, how do you expect them to fund the next 20 years of vacations to pay your expenses? Not going to happen. Of course, there are exceptions to everything. Some will be able to afford it, but not enough to write off the opinions and contributions of the aging generations in their 30s to their 90s. So, certainly not enough for you to redefine what Disney is and discard all the fans who got you there without there being repercussions. We're not your legacy. We're your foundation. We are your repeat business. The ones that come every year without fail and bring our friends and family, creating new fans out of those people. We are your market. We might be your only way forward if things keep going the way they are. You don't want to rely on those once-in-a-lifetime vacationers who spend a fortune on their one visit. You need those annual pass holders to keep coming back and generating more opportunities for market growth. They're the ones who can see through the dollar value to the other side. And therein lies commitment, a nostalgia, a drive that propels guests to keep coming back and recreating those moments with new friends and family. In the article mentioned above, a spokeswoman for Disney says that the company's pricing is pure supply and demand, comparing it to an example of an airline. Well, actually, it's very different. The airline you choose to fly with was never the main event, simply means to get to where you wanted to go. With declining conditions and higher prices, we resentfully pay these companies to get to our vacation destination. Not by choice, not because we enjoy the sardine-like seating experience in a sweaty German-infested airlock, but because it allows us to arrive at our desired vacation starting point. Where Disney is concerned, if they aren't careful, they might find that we still pay for the dreaded flight, but our vacation destination changes. I'm no fan of Bob Chapek, the CEO of Disney. He can manifest this disingenuous villainous smirk with far too much ease. But I'll tell you one thing. He's done a great job of copping all the flack on the front lines. At the same time, behind the scenes, the Disney powers finally make poor decisions after poor decisions in such quick succession that no one looks any further than the puppet placed at the microphone. Those days might be limited with more media coverage like the Wall Street Journal. In the meantime, Josh D'Amaro, chairman of Disney Theme Parks, know that we are on a first-name basis and all. Now that we're on a first-name basis and all, my advice is that Disney is this. As a company, take a long, hard look of where you want to be, then work out how exactly the once-in-a-lifetime vacationing guests of Generation Z and Generation Alpha will carry you there when all of us legacy fans find something else to invest in. Is this really what Walt Disney worked so hard for? Yeah. Disney's in trouble if they can't bring in repeat business to the theme parks. No matter, it's Disney, the theme parks, and ESPN are Disney's biggest moneymakers. They can rely on that whenever everything else in the company is going to crap, is floundering. So if they lose the repeat customers, the repeat visitors at the theme parks, they're in deep trouble. So now I have a more optimistic and favorable view of Bob Chapek than some people. I kind of think he wants to turn things around and bring the company to the center. But the way Disney is structured, there's a lot of, lower ranking executives who have a lot of power in their own domains. And he's got to bring them around. Either that or put the fear of God into them or get rid of them. So I know he's got the support of the investors and the board of directors, but he's got a long way to go before he can actually, turn Disney around. In the meantime, we can get our entertainment from regular creators on YouTube and Rumble and Odyssey. More so on Rumble and Odyssey because of this next article from reclaimthenet.org. Russell Brand to stream new daily live show exclusively on Rumble. I'm really impressed with the evolution of Russell Brand. He used to be like this obnoxious left-wing stooge, left-wing flack, but he's really put his liberal open-mindedness to the test, and he's really been red-pilling a lot of people, and he's had great success on YouTube, and he's carrying that over into Rumble. Comedian, actor, and podcaster Russell Brand is launching a new daily live show, Stay Free with Russell Brand, exclusively on the free speech video sharing platform Rumble on September 28th. The show will explore global events and provide unique perspectives on culture, news, and politics. It'll be live streamed on Rumble at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on weekdays. After the exclusive Rumble live stream, Brand will host an exclusive live question and answer session for his subscribers on Locals, Rumble's subscription-based community partner platform. Locals will also be the new home of Brand's full-length video podcast conversations and premium content, such as his live comedy tour. We're excited to empower Russell to grow his audience on Rumble and Locals, Rumble CEO Chris Pavlovski said. Russell is known for his unfiltered opinions, and we're proud to serve as a technology platform where he can grow his audience. Brand joined Rumble and Locals in November of 2021. Since joining, he's built an audience of over 521,000 subscribers on Rumble and over 22,000 community members on Locals. Stay Free with Russell Brand is the second exclusive show Rumble has announced. Last week, Rumble announced that journalist Glenn Greenwald will be streaming an exclusive live show on Rumble Monday through Friday. Rumble has been growing rapidly and set a new record of 78 million monthly active users. In addition to launching exclusive shows, Rumble has also embraced popular creators that have had their content censored or restricted by big tech. Kickboxer and self-help coach Andrew Tate and lo-fi hip-hop music brand Lo-Fi Girl are two of the many creators that have joined Rumble in recent months. And I mentioned Lo-Fi Girl in my last stream, and that's a huge development because part of YouTube's appeal is it's got so much content under so many categories. It's got entertainment, it's got politics, it's got business, it's got how-to videos. Rumble has been mostly politics, but the arrival of Lo-Fi Girl is going to bring a lot of entertainment content to Rumble. So Rumble is turning out as probably the best shot of being the YouTube killer, to be the true free speech, alternative to YouTube. I'm also really excited about Odyssey. So I do my live stream simultaneously on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. At some point, I might do exclusive content on Rumble and Odyssey and shut down YouTube at some point for the stream. So, two more articles, and they're good news articles. We're really seeing the globalists and the deep state. Excuse me. They're really feeling the heat. This article from the Gateway Pundit. After terrorizing her country, authoritarian New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern drops mask and COVID-19 vaccine mandates. This is from yesterday. Let's read. The authoritarian Prime Minister of New Zealand has finally dropped all remaining pandemic restrictions, but not before she subjected her country to discrimination and terror for failing to comply with her demands. After imposing a dystopian zero COVID policy that resulted in New Zealanders stuck offshore or stuck in other countries and unable to return home, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said she would get rid of the world's toughest pandemic rules at a news conference on Monday in Wellington. The wearing of masks will no longer be required in public places, and the last vaccination mandates will be removed in around 2 weeks. However, the government remains firm on its position despite proposals to reduce the mandatory isolation period for those with the virus from 7 to 5 days, according to The Guardian. And just like that, authoritarian Jacinda Ardern announced, "We all just need to respect people's individual decisions. People use masks for their own individual reasons. They may personally be vulnerable. They may have events they want to make sure they're not unwell for. They may not have had COVID-19. We all just need to respect everyone's individual decisions," Ardern said. This chick is toast, and she knows it. She's backpedaling. I don't know the political dynamics in New Zealand and what power the people are taking back there, but this is a sign that the people are winning. This is a time when, finally, rather than feeling that COVID dictates what happens to us, our lives, and our future, we take control back as we continue to drive economic activity and our recovery, she said. One reporter bravely told her that's not her taking back control, but it's her giving up her totalitarian grip over New Zealand. The reporter asked, "You talk about taking back control, but isn't this about you giving up control you have over New Zealanders' lives? This is about New Zealanders finally having certainty," Ardern refuted. Certainty that was taken away by COVID. It's fair to say that I cast a cloud because whilst we had long periods without COVID in this country, there was always that sense of potential anticipation. Now those periods are gone. We move forward with confidence, knowing that we're not going to use those measures in the future, and we have a new period to move this summer, she added. Okay. Back in 2021, New Zealand, Ardern, excuse me, I've been talking so long, I need a sip. Back in 2021, Ardern happily admitted she created two classes of people, the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. New Zealand also went into a nationwide lockdown after one person tested positive for COVID-19. Ardern told New Zealanders not to talk to each other after the country's first COVID case in 6 months was reported. Don't talk to your neighbors. Please, keep to your bubbles, Ardern said during a press conference. We only get one chance, she added. The best thing we can do to get out of this as quickly as we can is to go hard. We made the decision on the basis that it's better to start high and go down levels rather than go low, not contain the virus and see it move quickly. New Zealanders desperate to return home were forced to participate in quarantine lottery in order to secure a bed in a military-run quarantine hotel. Many New Zealanders were stuck waiting in other countries as their visas expired. High Court Justice Gillian Mallon ruled this violated New Zealand's Bill of Rights Act, which guarantees every citizen the right to enter New Zealand. New Zealanders' rights to enter their country could be infringed in some instances in a manner that was not demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society, the judge concluded. Last year, the Prime Minister announced that the easing of COVID-19 restrictions would allow for orgies of up to 25 people. Ardern giggled as she spoke about the resumption of New Zealand orgies. And we could watch the video, but I don't want to. That'd be so cringe. But like I said, this chick is toast. This is a sign that she's losing her grip, and the people are going to boot her either officially out of office or they're going to cut off her control mechanisms. One more article, and it's bad news for Biden, but it's good news for justice. From Breitbart, poll says 58% want Biden to stop blaming MAGA and fix the economy he ruined. And he did ruin it. Not actually him. The puppet masters did. A clear majority of 58% of likely voters say his fraudulency, Joe Biden, should quit blaming MAGA Republicans and get to working on the economy he ruined. The poll comes from Rasmussen reports in the wake of Biden's disastrous Red sermon, or Red speech, where he went to Philadelphia to declare war on the majority of voters, those of us who dare support rightful President Trump. By demonizing the majority of voters, Biden, his fellow Democrats, and the corporate media are hoping to do two things. Change the subject away from the recession that Biden and his disastrous policies plunged America into, and two, improve his polling by throwing this fascist meat to the fascist left-wing base. Biden's dangerous rhetoric and demagoguery is unlike anything heard in the country by a national leader since the days of Father Charles Coughlin. To the surprise of no one, this did boost his poll numbers by appealing to the Nazis and the violent and bloodthirsty Democrat base. But back in the real world, at least according to Rasmussen, 58% wanted to stop with the hate speech and focusing on repairing the economy he ruined, quote unquote. This includes 35% of Democrats and 54% of moderates. The poll also asked if people agreed with the following Biden statement. Quote, Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundation of our republic, unquote. Less than half agreed. 36% strongly agreed, but 39% strongly disagreed. Only 12% somewhat agreed, while 8% somewhat disagreed. So that's a percent. That's 45. That's 48% agree, 47% disagree. The problem for Biden and his media supporters is that this kind of hate speech can only work as a sugar high. The economy is in recession. Gas prices might be going down, but are still way above the per gallon price when Biden started squatting in the White House. And he's still a creepy old man who has no idea where he is most of the time. On top of that, Democrats have become the party that supports child grooming and abusing underage children with chemical castration and other medical horrors to appease the transsexual Nazis. The party opposed to free speech and expression. The joyless, humorless party of scolds. The party that cannot deliver water and electricity. The criminal party emptying the prisons while castrating cops. The party that wants to take away our cars, our guns, our steaks, and kill babies before they are born. Biden can go full fascist all he wants to juice the haters in the Democrat base. Normal Americans, decent Americans, no Democrats want to force us to eat bugs while they have sex with our kids. No amount of demagoguery can paint over that. Boom! Fist bump to John Nolte. I mean, what else can you say? That was perfect. The Democrats really are the evil party. I mean, people say, "Oh, the Republicans are no different." Well, the old Republicans are different. The establishment Republicans are different. But the rightful President Trump is fixing that. He's endorsing candidates. He's getting people through the primaries. There's going to be a new Republican Party very soon. We're in the midst of a transformation, and they're not just conservative; they're true conservatives, and they're true liberals. You know, I always say liberalism and conservatism should not be opposing ideologies. They are both valid philosophies. Liberals and conservatives ought to be friends. The real enemies are leftists and right-wing crazies who pretend to have certain values, but they use them to hide their crimes and their ulterior motives. People like the Democrats, people like the rhinos, people like the late John McCain, people like George W., people like John Kerry, who couldn't even beat W in 2004, and that says something. People like Obama, people like the CCP, people like the banking cabal and the Federal Reserve. People are waking up. Now, it had to be this way. We had to see, you know, these people for what they are. And President Trump, he took away all their, you know, their cover stories. He made peace with other countries. He made deals with leaders around the world. He turned the economy around. He nixed the pandemic and the COVID pandemic in America by fast tracking the vaccine. What do you think? Whether you want to take the vaccine or not, you ought to have a choice in it. You shouldn't be forced on you. But the fact that it was available cut the pandemic and the lockdowns down, nipped it in the bud. Trump took away all the cover stories that the deep state criminals, you know, were going to use to push their agenda. X-22 Report talks about this all the time. The mask is coming off, and while it looks bad, it just means that these people are desperate. We're in the discovery phase right now. We're in the half of the battle where we're knowing, we're gathering information, we're exposing secrets. Eventually, we're going to be able to take action against the people who are abusing us and take back control and find out what power we had all along. But before that, we have to, you know, get wise. We're starting to see that with Dr. Thala's great Twitter thread. We're starting to see that with, you know, Hollywood. We're starting to see that with Bitcoin, with the economy. We're starting to see that with that, you know, stupid move by the credit cards. Things are looking up. So with that, I think I'm going to let you go. Like I said, if you want to support the channel, the program, consider my business opportunities. Get a website and get a digital marketing package through ziphoswebmarketing.com. Invest in crypto through Uphold and BitGet. There's BitGet. I'll get a little commission from every person who joins. And also go to my website, natehassman.net, and buy some cool merch. I also accept Bitcoin donations, so you can you can go to my website here and do that, or you can follow the address in the description. But your help is great. Your support is greatly appreciated, and I don't just offer services and resources that I hope make me money. I offer services and support and products that I really think could benefit you in these troubled times. So please share this with your friends, spread the word, and don't give up. Whatever struggles you're going through in your business, in your home, things are looking up. You just gotta educate yourself, and I'll help you do that. So I'm Nate Hausman, letting you go, and I want to let you know it's okay to stand up for yourself. Have a good one.